up in this one. Actually, probably been better since you're all full of food. I'm not going to have that problem because I'm doing this ridiculous caveman diet, which means water all day. So I haven't had any lunch, so there we go. Which is good fun, but the belly's going, so it's all good. So what I'm going to try and do, actually I need to do this manually, didn't I? What I'm going to try to do this afternoon is just give you some of the basics and the context of SEO. It's a very, very deep, very technical subject. I can talk to you about it for probably about 3 days, and you definitely would be asleep by the end of that. So I'm not going to do that. So I'm skimming over the surface, but trying to give you some context and trying to give you some real things that you can all do individually to your website quite easily. These things on their own aren't going to propel you to #1 on Google. It takes quite a complex number of different things, different attributes of how that works, and hopefully I can explain the context of that to you, so at least you have some takeaways to go and work on your websites. So first of all, what is SEO? So it stands for Search Engine Optimization. Can anyone tell me what search engine optimization is, or what you think it is? Anyone want to have a stab at it?
Keywords that are used to draw people or traffic to your website.
Certainly one element, yeah, keywords are important. So search terms or keywords, it's kind of interchangeable, those two things. Search engine optimization, for me, I actually wrote a big blog post about this, a bit of a rant, because what the industry thinks SEO is ranking on Google and being #1. Actually, for me, it's more about ranking and traffic, so a bit more than just search engine optimization. So what the industry tends to call SEO, I call ranking and traffic, because more rankings give you more traffic, and more traffic, as long as your website is effective at converting those into leads, means more inquiries and more sales, which is actually what you want. You know, you don't actually want SEO, you don't want a website, you don't really want AdWords, you don't want social media. What you want is more inquiries and more sales. We all want that, okay? So it's more about ranking and traffic. So how it actually fits together, hopefully I haven't been too clever with this slide, is if we start with content. So what we mean by content is the web pages across your website that are very specific to what you do. So if you are trying to rank for wedding dresses in Birmingham, for example, then obviously you want a specific page around that keyword, because that indicates that someone has high intent, they're looking for exactly what you do. With your blog posts, you should try and find a search term, and you can do this by, you know when you type things into Google and it tries to predict what you're searching for? So if you just kind of go along, I don't know, things like how to choose a wedding dress or something like that, or venues for weddings in place names, and then just start typing them and see what it comes up with. It isn't necessarily the case that there's lots of search volume on that, but it does mean if there's quite low search volume, tends to be low competition, and just a single blog post answering a particular question could get you some really nice traffic to your website. So the content there is really to demonstrate credibility and relevance to that person who's searching. But it also does that for Google. Okay, so you create your content. Now the second thing that you do, which is the social media side of things, is Google measures to a degree the social interaction around your content when you share it. Okay, so if you tweet a link to a blog post and that has lots of tweets or retweets and conversations on it, then Google can take some indication of the quality of that content. So if you create a blog post versus one of your competitors and you get lots of engagement and interaction and your competitor doesn't, then there's more value. So social media really validates your content. Okay, so quite an important distinction. One of the things that is important, and it's a real big myth in our industry, and actually, have you all heard of a publication called Forbes? Okay, well there was an article on Forbes written by somebody who's a fairly credible author that basically said, I think it was something like 6 social media activities that will benefit your SEO. The truth is, and Matt Cutts, who is head of the web spam team at Google, there's a video on this, you can go and watch it, I'm not making this stuff up. He has said in that video, Google cannot index or doesn't have access to any of the semantic data like how many followers you have on Twitter. It can read the web page with a number on it, but it can't measure how many favorites, it can't measure number of likes on Facebook. So if you tweet something, or Justin Bieber tweets it, or Lady Gaga, or me, why do I put myself in those categories? I'm nothing like those people. But it doesn't matter how many followers those accounts have that retweet your tweet. Google can't measure that stuff. So a tweet is worth a tweet regardless of who does it. A Facebook post with a link in it is worth exactly the same as well. So, and this article basically said, you should do this because if you've got more followers on Twitter and you tweet links, then there's more SEO value. There isn't. Okay, so one of the things that I come across a lot, I had a conversation with somebody on the phone for about 3/4 of an hour just recently, where the guy basically said to me, is Twitter good for SEO? Well, Twitter's really great for your brand and it's really great for you to connect to your audience. That's why you do Twitter. Yes, it has a little bit of SEO value, but don't do Twitter for SEO. What about Facebook? Is that good for SEO? I'll refer you to my first answer. Do Facebook because it's a way of getting your brand in front of your audience. It's a way of demonstrating your credibility and all the things I talked about in the earlier session. So yes, absolutely do social media for the right reasons. You know, well, what about YouTube? Is that good for SEO? Yeah, YouTube is great for SEO, but don't create crap videos just for purposes of trying to rank something, because your audience will see them and go, ugh, I don't like them, and you'll lose customers. So what's the point of that? Okay. So we've got our content, we've got our validation of that content using social media, and then the next part is what I call SEO. That is the optimization of that content for the search engine. It's not creating content for the purposes of ranking or for the purposes of spreading articles around the web just so we can get a link back, which is kind of version 1 of SEO. Very spammy, lots of rubbish content around the web that didn't really mean a lot. It wasn't valuable to your audience. Lots of duplicated content, all this kind of stuff. Just really bad practices that you should absolutely avoid. So we've got the technical on-page optimization, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, and hopefully I can keep you awake long enough so you can take some of that stuff in. And then around that, we also have what we call a link profile. So have you all heard the term backlink? Show of hands, who's heard that term? Okay, so a reasonable number of you. So for those of you who don't know what that is, a backlink is if you're on a web page and it has a link that you can click that goes somewhere. Okay. Now, a backlink, one of the original measurements that Google used was if you're trying to rank your website, your home page, or a sub-page within it, maybe you've got a particular page about a particular product or service. If you're trying to rank that page, Google would count all of the links from the web that come back to that single page. And the more links you have, the higher the ranking. But then they added another dimension to that, which is page rank. And page rank is nothing to do with the rank you are on, the page you are on Google. It's created by Larry Page, one of the founders of Google, just to confuse us all. Okay. So page rank goes from 0 to 10. 10 is BBC website, BBC News, something like that. So something that's got lots and lots of content, lots of authority, regularly updated. If you got a single link on the BBC News website and homepage, you'd be instantly number 1 for whatever term you were trying to do, because it carries so much authority that it's passed through that link to your website that it's tremendously helpful. Now, if you've got 1,000 PageRank 1 websites, that's probably less valuable than that one link from the BBC. So it's a hyperlink that you can click on with your mouse or tap on your phone now, and that links to your website. So that's what a backlink is. Now, what happened, hands up who's heard of the Penguin or Panda updates? See how educated you are. Okay, few of you. Okay, good. So what Google's done over a period of time is refine their algorithm that defines who's on the first page. And the big one was Penguin. And this was about 3 years ago, something like that. And essentially what the Penguin update did, don't ask me why they use these Penguin and Panda and Hummingbird is the other one. Don't ask me what their naming convention is. I don't understand it, but anyway. So what Penguin focused on was poor quality links, poor quality backlinks, okay? And what people were doing is they were creating thousands or tens of thousands of websites. Very easily churning these things out with a piece of software, hosting them all over the place. And then what they would do is they would put a link on website number 1 to the other 9,999 websites. And they do that for all of them. So now you've got 10,000 websites with 10,000 backlinks each, which is great because they all have lots of authority because they have lots of backlinks, except they're all rubbish. So what Google said is, that's rubbish. We don't want to count those in our ranking algorithm. You are cheating the system. You are gaming the system. You are getting number one on Google, but actually your content may not be the best quality thing. So what Penguin first did is penalised, and that's Google's term, they penalised websites that had suspicious links, essentially. So we had a client, we weren't doing their SEO, I should hasten to add, we were doing Google Ads for them, and we put some conversion tracking code on the website so we could track from the click someone who filled in a form or bought something. In this case, it was an e-commerce store. And we put this code on. It took us about 6 weeks to finally get this little snippet of code on his website. And 2 days later, he phoned me and he was screaming at me. We've put this code on our website and you've ruined our rankings. We were one and two for all of these keywords and we were getting loads of traffic through. I went, it's a piece of code. And not only that, it's Google's code. So we kind of calmed him down a little bit. And then he called me back about 4 hours later and he apologised. And what I'd said to him in the first call is, it's probably been an algorithm update and this is what it was. And he dropped from top positions for quite high traffic terms that were very specific to what he did, and he was sitting back taking the sales. And it was brilliant, great business. But it was built on poor quality backlinks. So he sold white furniture. Okay, it's quite a particular style of white furniture, but he was top of Google for white furniture, white wardrobes, white tables, all these different terms. And what happened is the SEO company he'd been using were building all of these poor quality backlinks. So they need also to be relevant. So you can't just put a backlink anywhere if it's not relevant to what you do. So if you're trying to put them on a mobile phone site, for example, for your wedding services, it's not relevant. And Google knows that because it's indexed the page where it's coming from. Now this guy had 4,000 backlinks to his website, and that was what was building his ranking. But also he had links from mobile phone sites. Not relevant. One of the mobile phone sites was in Swedish. Certainly not relevant. So this is how the structure is built. And the Penguin update was all about backlink profile. So content plus your social media to validate, plus the optimization to tell Google what the page is actually about. And SEO, I should actually point out, is it's unique to every single page on your website. You don't just optimize the home page, it's every single page on your website. Okay, and we'll come on to that as well. So let's look at how this breaks down. I'll move over this side just to confuse you all. So we start with, as you rightly pointed out, search terms at the bottom. So when you're picking search terms, pick search terms which have high intent. So you don't particularly want to rank for the word wedding, because that's not really high intent. If you're, you may not want to rank even for wedding venues. Someone looking for a wedding venue, of course, but if you're in London or if you're in Birmingham, that person could be anywhere in the country. So actually, if you could do that, it'd be great, but that's not where I would start. That's not what I would prioritise. So pick search terms and keywords that represent someone who is looking for exactly what you do. Now, the ones you should already rank for are your own brand terms, what we call brand search. Okay? So if you type Tillison into Google, guess what comes up first, and second, and third, and fourth? Me. My company, my Twitter account, my Google Plus account, that's what comes up, because Google knows that they're probably searching for me. There's another Mark Tillison in the States. He's about this big and he's black and he does personal training. That's not me, okay? Just in case you're wondering, okay? So yes, pick terms that are absolutely relevant, that represent someone who's looking for precisely what you do, and start there and prioritize those things. Create content specific to those terms as well, okay? Then do your technical optimization of that content. So this is the metadata and title tags and things that I'm going to come on to in a moment. Amplify that with your social engagement. And as I said, Google has some indication. It can measure a little bit, and I think this will improve over time, over tweets and Facebook, but it measures them just as a link. So it's just like another web page. There's no kind of additional value. if, as I say, Justin Bieber retweets your tweet. You don't get any more value from that than if I did it. Then build links around the web, but do it in a careful way. Don't just go spamming this all over the place because you'll get penalised. It won't help. And then that's where your traffic comes from. Now, really, the outcomes with SEO, what we tend to get clients saying is, I want to be number one. I want to be number one. When can you get me into number one? How long would that take? Stop. What you really want is traffic. Ranking is one of the things that creates that traffic, but actually, whether you're number one or number two or number three, it does matter. But what number one is on Google, because of the way the search engine has changed very, very strongly over recent 6 months, 12 months. I mean, there's been some huge changes. The way that Google presents those results, number one isn't really number one anymore, because that's an objective test. Who's number one? Google search is not objective, it's subjective. The search results that you get will be different results from the ones that I get. Why? Because you have a different search history for me. You have a different location than I have. You're either logged into Google and it knows your Google Plus interactions or not. So the search results that each of you get, if you all type the same thing in, there's a reasonable chance you'd all get slightly different results. So am I number one on Google? Yes, for me, but I'm not your customer, so that doesn't matter. So what you should focus on is how much organic traffic am I getting? And that's really the outcome. And then if you set up Google Analytics properly, how many inquiries am I getting? How long are people spending on my website? How many pages are they looking at? How can I improve that experience? And you can measure those things. And that's really where the real value is with SEO. So a few tips. Who has Webmaster Tools? Who has an account Webmaster Tools? Okay, a couple of you. So who's got a Google account? Gmail, or just using Google Search or Google Docs or whatever. Okay, so it's a single account. So Webmaster Tools, if you go to Google and you just type Webmaster Tools, you will find it. Who has Google Analytics? So we're using Google Analytics? Okay, so what you need to do is go to Google, make sure you are logged into Google with the same account that you use for Google Analytics. You don't have to do this, but it will make your life a lot easier. Type Webmaster Tools, go to, I think it's webmastertools.google.com or something. Log in there, create an account, okay? It might ask you to put a little snippet of text on your website, something like that, but you can validate it with your analytics account as well. It's a completely free tool, just like Google Analytics, and effectively, it is your window into what Google thinks of your website, okay? So it will tell you if you have a 404 error, or you have lots of them. Anybody know what a 404 is? Page not found. Yes, otherwise known as you're an idiot. Okay, so don't have broken links on your website. 404 is bad news. It's bad news for Google. More importantly, it's bad news for your customers. What are they going to think of your website when they click on a link and it goes 404? Doesn't really paint your business in the greatest light, does it? So. But it will tell you 404s, it will tell you about crawl errors, so that's the bot coming along and crawling your content, and if it's having a problem crawling your website, guess what? It's not going to do your rankings any good. Google can't access your website, it can't measure it, it can't understand what those pages are about, so it can't index them properly, so you're not going to be anywhere on Google, let alone the first page. So really, really important, so important that my SEO specialist, the one who heads that team, he absolutely flatly refuses to run any SEO project or even quote for an SEO project until he's looked at Webmaster Tools. That's how important it is. Because when we're trying to look at a new project, we don't know what baggage we're taking on. If someone's got penalties from the Penguin update, and we go, yeah, we can do that for you, here's a price. And then we get the lid off and go, oh my God, we've got all this, so we think it's 6 to 9 months to get you some results, and actually we've got 4 months of unpicking all of this crap that someone else did to cheat the system. So we've got to get rid of all these penalties before we do anything else. Webmaster Tools is the only place that can tell you that for sure. So absolutely get a Webmaster Tools account. This is going to be a bit small, don't worry too much about reading the individual content on the page, it's not important. And if you really want a copy of the slide deck, then give me a card, I'll send it to you. So great. So when you get into Webmaster Tools, this is, I think this is a screenshot from Adam's machine. So they're different accounts that he's got access to. So if you log in, you'll just get one listed at the top, okay? And then when you're in there, you can then add other people. You can invite other people to look at your Webmaster Tools account. So maybe the guy or girl who builds your website for you. Maybe you've got someone who does your marketing for you or what have you. So you can give them permissions and then you can decide what they can access and what they can't, okay? So the good practice then is to link Webmaster Tools with Google Analytics so they can share some data. So you'll start getting a bit more data in Google Analytics that is only in Webmaster Tools. So the two talk to each other. And by the way, you should also connect your Google AdWords account, if you have one, connect that to Analytics as well, because that will give you more, richer data. So link the two together. The first option is use your Google Analytics account. That's the easiest one. It's pretty much automatic. If you can't do that for whatever reason, then you take this HTML tag. You probably can't see it too well, but it will give you this long string. It's a bit of metadata, and you just get your webmaster to paste that into your homepage. It won't show any text on the page or anything. It's just that Google can see the tag, and it verifies that you own that website. That's all it is. And then you will get a nice, neat dashboard. So this will tell you some nice, as a dashboard normally would, it will tell you impression data. So impressions means your pages on your website have appeared in Google searches, okay? So what you want to see with the impressions over a period of time is them going up and up and up and up. If they're going up, that means when people are searching, your website or web pages from your site are being shown more often. And then also the clicks that you've got from those impressions, okay? You can also see things like, what's that one? URLs. So URLs is each page reference, effectively, and how many it's crawled over a period of time. So you can see some data from that. And it will also tell you about errors. And that's probably the most important thing here. You don't want Google saying there are errors on your website, okay? So this is something you review probably every couple of weeks, really. You should be looking in here and seeing what alerts and issues there are. You'll also get some real funky stuff like index status. So this is the number of pages. As you can see, this is actually our website. And it goes along, and there's this big hump right in the middle, okay? It was an unfortunate time to take the screenshot. Somebody managed to duplicate our website. So instead of 300 odd pages or whatever it was, suddenly we had like 700. And then we removed it, which you can see they're gradually removed from the index again. Okay, but that's the only way we found out. It was like idiot web developers kind of did this. Well, what are you doing? So yeah, so that will tell you about index status, and you should have an idea of the new pages you're creating. If you're blogging, if you're creating new landing pages, new categories for products you do, new photographs or whatever it is, case studies, all of that stuff. You'll have an idea of what new pages there are. So you should be able to look at that graph and say, yeah, that looks about right. But if it stays constant and you know you're creating new pages, then you know you've got a problem, okay? But Webmaster Tools is certainly the easiest way to do that. Crawl errors, as I said before, crawl error is specifically that the bot has come to your website and couldn't crawl it. Now, there could be multiple reasons for this. There's a file called a robots.txt file that could be telling Google, don't index my site, I don't want you here. Why would you do that? I have no idea why you would do that. It could be that maybe your site is down. You know, maybe the server you got it hosted on has got some issues. And maybe that's down occasionally. So you will start to see these issues from time to time as well. And of course, you don't want those. Sitemap. Anyone know what a sitemap is? No volunteers for that one. Okay. A sitemap is effectively an index of all of the pages on your website. Okay? Now, most websites, if you look right down in the footer, you'll usually find a link that says sitemap. Why would you do that? Well, because Google comes and crawls your homepage, and then it goes, oh, sitemap, and it'll follow the link, and it will go and index that page. And that page has a link to every single page on your website. So you just made Google's life really easy. You can make it easier still by adding that sitemap, the address of that, and it's usually like sitemap.xml or something like that. You can add that to Webmaster Tools. So you don't even have to hope that Google will go and index it. You're going, hey Google, here's my sitemap, please index it. So you've got a much stronger chance of your content being indexed and all of your pages. So certainly have a sitemap on there. Adam also tends to recommend to clients that as well as an XML sitemap, which is all code, that you can also have a HTML sitemap. HTML is the standard code of a web page. So that's one that a human being can actually look through and click on things and so forth as well. So he recommends, tends to recommend having both. On-page data. Okay, every page on your website should have unique metadata. Is there anybody in here from Belfry? Good. Okay. So what you shouldn't have is on every page on your website, the title of the page to be The Belfry. Oh, what about tea times? The Belfry. Oh, what about staying at the hotel? The Belfry. Okay, no. Tea time should be tea times at the Belfry because it's unique content. You don't want to duplicate the titles of each of your pages. You certainly shouldn't have duplicate metadata. I'm going to show you each of the primary tags and areas that we optimize in a moment, but they should all be unique for every single page. Certainly duplication of any content and certainly of metadata is a bad thing. So try and avoid doing that. So heading tags, title tags, image tags, and I'll come on to those in a moment. And the other thing that you need to be careful about when we're talking about on-page SEO, so this is the content on your website, is there is a real, a desire, if you like, when you're trying to rank for a particular keyword, to try and put that keyword in your content as many times as you possibly can. It looks horrible to a visitor, and they don't buy stuff if you do that. And now, Google will penalise you for it. So write your content, because that's part of your SEO as well, write your content for a human being first. But consider it in the context of Google indexing that stuff as well, okay? Google will not buy stuff from you, your customers will. So write stuff for them first. And then optimise that with these semantic techniques that I'm going to tell you in a moment. Yeah, okay. So if we look at this, this is one of the tools that we use. I don't think you can see this too well, but I'll explain it. So in the title, this is a page about pay-per-click management. So the keyword we're really targeting is pay-per-click management, surprisingly. Meta keywords, so this is one bit of text in a web page that used to be a ranking factor. But everybody spammed the hell out of it and cheated the system, so Google went, you know what, we don't care about that anymore. So we don't bother populating them anymore. The next one is the meta description, and you will notice that the term pay-per-click, if you can see that far at the back, pay-per-click are the first 3 words in that description. Why? Because Google places more weight on the words at the beginning of a page, and the beginning of a paragraph, and the beginning of a sentence, and the beginning of a title than it does later on. Okay? I've got an example of this in a moment, actually. So there's our description, and that description also is the description that comes up when someone searches and finds your link on Google. So you're essentially saying to Google, this is what my page is about, my keyword is in there, but this is also the text that I want to show when I come up in the listings. So if you just spam this full of keywords, wedding dresses Birmingham, wedding dresses, I don't know, West Midlands, wedding dresses Midlands, and you put that in there, that's what's going to show when someone searches for wedding dresses Birmingham, and then they see that and it's just got all this rubbish text. That's a marketing opportunity. This should be about what makes you unique, what makes you amazing, why they should come to your website. So, it serves 2 purposes. And then we move on to what we call a H1 tag. You're all familiar with word processing, so you've got like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. You can do all that stuff and you can style it. Well, the H1 tag is effectively heading 1, okay? But Google places a lot of authority, a lot of importance on that tag. So again, ideally, the H1 tag should be your keyword. Okay, and then H2 tags, obviously that's heading 2. It will also place some authority in that. So again, think about how that works. Putting things in bold, also Google will place slightly more relevance to those terms than general text as well. Yeah, that's probably enough to, I want to give you kind of too much. Okay, so let's look at the title tag. So this is the one for today. So somebody in, who's in from Guides for Brides? Guys at the back, okay. On your website, the title tag you've got is Guides for Brides UK Wedding Conference. It would be better if it said UK Wedding Conference Guides for Brides, because the thing you want to rank for is actually UK Wedding Conference. Guides for Brides you'll rank naturally because Google knows that's your brand, so you don't need to work hard to rank for that. So actually just putting that term around the other way. So this is how you get to this text, by the way. You can look at this for pretty much any web page. If you right-click on it, most browsers do this the same way. You right-click, view page source, and it will tell you. So if you want to see what your competitors are doing, or if you're looking for keywords, go and type them into Google. See who comes up top or second or third. Go and have a look at the text on the page that comes up in the rankings, and see what title they're using. So that's the title tag. That's also the thing that shows in the window at the top when someone's looking at your site, or shows on the tab. That's the name of the page. Okay, so that's the title tag. The next one is the description. This is the one from the Belfry homepage. So meta, name, description, content. The Belfry Hotel and Resorts has hosted more Ryder Cup matches than anyone else in the world, or something, I think it says. But when the Belfry comes up in the search rankings, that's what you see, which is great. That's perfect. The reason I didn't use the wedding conference one is because there was no meta description. Dreadful, dreadful. Get someone to sort that out. Okay, so this is from our website. So this is the H1 tag, different page. And then you can also have what we call an image alt tag. So alt is alternate. And the reason that you do that is, well, not everyone can see that uses the internet. Some people are, partially sighted. Some people are completely blind. Now, if you use a screen reader, it gets to an image and goes, what's that? Don't know. Hasn't got an alt tag or alt text. With a screen reader, they can read that. Also, I think Alan mentioned this earlier, Google can't really read images very well. So you might have a really nice picture of a bride in a lovely wedding dress, or a lovely picture of somebody at your venue, but Google doesn't know what that is. It's just a picture. So you give it some alt text to give it some context. And guess what? Try and use your keyword, okay? But don't overstuff your content. Don't just plaster this keyword everywhere you possibly can. Do it in a fairly natural way. Okay, so just be a bit careful about overusing stuff. How are we doing on time? Who's timekeeping? Okay, cool. Good. Okay, heading tags. So this is the one I was telling you about. H1 tag, the Belfry. This particular tag is from their golf breaks page. Anyone spot anything wrong? They're all the same. Okay. I mean, it's relevant to the site, of course it is. And you'll tend to find that most content management systems, when you create pages, if you don't optimize them, it will just set them all as the same. And this is why you end up with this. Someone hasn't gone out of their way to create this. It's just the default, basically. But obviously, if the title and the H1 tag was more about golf breaks, the content on the page is about golf breaks, and it mentions golf breaks in the text. But I can make it clearer to Google by optimizing the title and the H1 tag that it's about golf breaks at the Belfry. Then I'm going to rank much better for that because I'm demonstrating more relevance. And that's one of the key terms here is relevance. Alt tags, good. Score points for you guys at the back. You got an alt tag, yay! Except it says Guides for Brides UK Wedding Conference, not the other way around, but I'll give you some points anyway, okay? So yes, some do's and don'ts. So do research and identify high intent terms. Don't just try and rank for everything. You're trying, there's kind of a little grid that I put together just recently to try and do this in a mathematical way. But when you're picking keywords, there's kind of an intersection of kind of three variables. The first one is, how relevant is this term to my business? How likely is it that someone searching for that is going to pick up the phone and talk to me? Okay, so high intent is the first thing. The second thing is, how much search volume is there on that search term? Okay, so if there's not much volume, that's probably not a massively high priority for you. If there's lots of volume and high intent, then that's great. The third one is, where does my website currently rank for that term? Because if you're on page 2, the journey to page 1 is a lot shorter. If you're on page 20, or nowhere, as I like to call it, then that journey is a lot harder. So you want to pick, I'm going to use a cliche, and you can all boo me, that's up to you, but you want to pick low-hanging fruit, okay? We're not doing cliche bingo, okay? But you're certainly looking for opportunities which are going to give you the fastest return on your investment of time. Okay, so, and then certainly as you start optimizing for those, then you can move on to some of those secondary terms. Okay, the other thing with that is, as you start optimizing your site and certain pages, and they start ranking better, you're building the overall authority for the whole website. And as you build the authority for the whole website, all of your internal linkings are passing what we call that ranking juice between different pages. So as you're optimizing for some things, the things you're not optimizing should naturally start to come up in the rankings as well. They're not suddenly going to appear on page 1, but something that's on page 5 could come to page 4 without you really focusing on them specifically. So as the weeks and months go by, opportunities on more of your search terms that you're monitoring will emerge, and then you make more decisions and you react to that and go, right, okay, I'm going to focus on that now. So you definitely sort of move that stuff around. When you've identified those high intent terms and you know what your priorities are, create great content, unique content for those terms. If you look at that predictive search little tip that I gave you, if you look at some of those predictive search terms that come up, they're in what we call the long tail. Okay, I won't go into why it's called the long tail. You Google it, you'll see a nice pretty graph. But things in the long tail, so they have a little bit of search volume each, but if you can create a blog post or create a YouTube video or something like that that specifically relates to that search term, you can rank that quite easily because there's not going to be much competition. And that's free traffic to your website, remember. So if you could do that with 10 or 15 blog posts that get 20 or 30 hits each every month, if you can do that over the course of a year, maths escapes me. That's quite a lot of free traffic. Okay, so there's certainly things you can do there, and that will start to build the authority of your landing pages with your services and your products on them, and that will continue to improve as well. Do check Webmaster Tools weekly for errors which could crop up. I say crawl errors, 404s, things like that, and get those fixed as quickly as you possibly can. Make sure you populate your metadata for each page and make sure that is unique as well. So titles and descriptions, certainly. Don't worry too much about keywords. Populate them if you want, but it's not important to Google. Make sure that each page has a unique H1 tag, so the header tag as well. And make sure your website has a sitemap. Make it easy for Google to crawl all of those pages of content that you want indexed. Okay, Mac doesn't like this. I'll just tell you them. Right, don'ts. Don't stuff your content and your metadata with keywords. You will get penalised for it, so don't overdo it. Again, write the pages for human beings, but just be aware of the context of Google indexing it as well. Don't have broken links on your website. You won't get penalised particularly, but certainly in Google's eyes, in that ranking factor, if you like, this isn't a very good website. It's got broken links all over it, so that's going to damage any value you might have had. Again, don't stuff the body content and don't duplicate pages. Certainly don't go to somebody else's website and copy some text and paste it in. I'm sure none of you lovely people would do anything like that, but don't do that. If you're trying, there's a temptation. I don't know. Let's say you're in Birmingham to go, whoa, wedding dresses Birmingham. Well, I'll create a page for wedding dresses in Solihull. because I can service that area. We've got customers in Solihull. Well, I'll just take that content and then I'll just replace the word Birmingham with the word Solihull. And now I've got a page that's for Solihull. That'd be great, and I can rank that. No, that doesn't work. Okay, you'll get penalised for duplicate content. There are some technical ways I won't go into today because they are quite deeply technical about how that's going to work, but ideally you need unique content for each of those. Alan was saying earlier, and this is a neat trick that you can do, if you want to try and rank different pages for different areas, put even a paragraph of duplicate content you want to try and avoid that, but just have a unique paragraph for each one and then have some testimonials from 2 or 3 customers in that particular location. So if you want to rank for wedding dresses Dudley, create a Dudley page and have Dudley testimonials on it. If you want to rank for Birmingham, create a Birmingham page and put Birmingham testimonials on it. Google's going to be fairly happy with that. You will always rank better for the location where you actually are. Okay, so if you are in Birmingham and you're trying to rank for Solihull or Dudley or something like that, then you're never going to do as well with Dudley stuff as you will with Birmingham if you are actually in Birmingham. Okay, because Google knows where you are. It's got lots of citations and references in Thomson Local and Yale about where your business actually is really. So that's always going to be a bit of a challenge. There we go. Finished a bit early. Good stuff. Any questions from anyone?
So that was all pretty Japanese. That's why I paid somebody else to do it.
Yes.
Should this just be stuff that I should just be double checking that they are doing correctly then?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you want access to Webmaster Tools.
Yeah, and I'll still be able to access that regardless.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're doing it, or if I still link it all up to Webmaster Tools, I can still look at that to make sure they're
Yeah.
basically doing their job.
Yeah, the usual way is that it's your Webmaster Tools account and you give them access.
Okay.
Rather than it's their Webmaster Tools, and then if you ever get into an argument, they go, no, it's ours, you can't have it, which is just, I'd never do that to a client.
Yeah, of course. So in Google Analytics, because we've got quite a high bounce rate, but I can see in our referral, the acquisition referrals,
Yep.
it's like a little kind of, I don't know, box or
Right.
they're like, I've Googled to see what they are, and they're like spam websites
Okay.
that are just throwing all of our numbers out.
Right, okay.
And that we need to worry about that these little spam bots are accessing our website.
We've actually, it's a great question. We've had similar problems. We had a DDoS attack, so denial of service. So someone just going, give me the page, give me the page, give me the page, give me the page, give me the page from thousands of computers around the web, and it will just take your website down. And we had an ongoing attack from that for about 3 months. Had to replace the whole website. I had hair before that. I mean, it was great.
We've just had a new website.
Yes.
So we've gone onto analytics and looked into it.
And had a look, yeah.
The rest of it.
Okay.
They're all the URL for them is all .ru.
Okay.
I know from Google that a lot of people are having trouble with it, and I don't know, can you block those things?
Yeah, there are a few ways around that. I mean, I tend to sort of work with the guys who host ours. They do our IT support and they host our website. We had a lot of traffic coming from .ru, so Russia, Holland, California, lots and lots of it. I mean, literally 8 o'clock in the morning, you have 1,000 hits on the website in the space of a minute. Yeah, and it messes up all the data. If you're worried about the data, then you can create a filter in Google Analytics to filter that stuff out, and then it won't show. It'll still be happening, you just won't be able to see it. That's not going to fix the problem. You can, certainly with server, you can block anybody who's coming from an IP range. So literally your server, not your website, the server itself will just go, no, sorry, not available, go away. The other way around it is that you can look at, not giving you an acronym, it's a Content Distribution Network, so CDN. We use one on our site to get around this problem. We use one called Cloudflare. And what it effectively does is it takes a copy of your website, multiple copies, and it hosts them on their servers in different locations around the world. So if somebody from the USA requests pages from your website, they get the local cached version of your website. It's not duplicate content because Google knows how that works, okay? But it means they get a faster response from the pages. But Cloudflare will also allow you to block a lot of that traffic. It's about $20, I think, $20 to £20 a month. But it certainly helped with ours. to block that anyway. Sorry, got it back.
So obviously when I'm writing my blog posts on photographer,
Mm-hmm.
obviously we have to put a lot of images on, do
Yep.
the text. So when I do the alt tag, I was sort of told if it's a bridal portrait, write bridal portrait.
Yep.
Is it better to go to Darren Bedding Photography bridal portrait?
You should put an alt tag of what the image actually is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to come up in Google image search quite often. So again, you don't want to kind of make it spammy.
Yeah.
I mean, if it feels unnatural and spammy, then you shouldn't be doing it, okay? If you feel like you're doing something that's a bit kind of over the top, then you're probably right, you know?
So when I write the meta description, it's going to look, so say I say wedding here at Belfry,
Yeah.
so would you put Belfry wedding as your first?
Yeah, you could do certainly something like that, yeah. So the alt text, I mean, it's there. The real reason that the alt text exists is to tell somebody who can't see the picture, or maybe the picture is missing, maybe it's been deleted from your server accidentally, is to say what that picture actually was. That's its real purpose, but Google does use that to index to find out what it is. So
when I write the meta description, there's going to be the advert that comes up.
Yeah.
I would then write Belfry wedding for the client.
yeah, something like that. So yeah, I mean, you want to try and put your keyword in, but if you've got 500 images across your website, what you don't want is the same alt text for every single image, because Google's just going to go, really? You know, and you're just probably going to end up getting penalised for it. So be really careful with that. But yeah, you want a unique alt text, and think about the keywords you're trying to do to rank for, to make that relevant. But certainly, you know, summer wedding at the Belfry or something like that, and maybe the person's name, first name, not surnames, I'm sure. But yeah, I would tend to do that. Sorry.
You're talking about sort of low-hanging fruit in terms of like keywords.
Cliche bingo!
Excellent term, isn't it? But what I've always, in the past, I've used like the keyword planner tool to kind of, you know, look at different terms, how much traffic there is, and then run
Okay.
like short CPC campaigns to try and like identify how much I can convert those.
Yes.
I've got a new site that's launching. We've only got a small number of pages because of the number of the business, and I'm
Sure.
finding it really, really difficult to decide. There's so many sort of terms that are around the same amount of traffic.
Yeah.
Are there any like other than sort of Google Keyword Planner, other sort of tools that you could recommend for keyword research and ascertaining the traffic, potential conversions?
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few. To be honest, we tend to rely just on the keyword planner. For those of you who don't know, in the Google AdWords app, software, whatever you want to call it, there's a thing in there called the keyword planner. And effectively, you can type some search terms in there, and then Google will suggest other things that are similar to that, and it will tell you the rough and estimated amount of search volume for each of those terms. So sometimes you'll put something in, it will go, well, there's nothing for that. And sometimes you'll put something in, it will go, well, wedding dresses, Birmingham, well, there's a bit on that. What about wedding dresses? Yeah, okay, I don't really want to spend $4,000 a month on clicks or whatever. But the Google Keyword Planner that's in AdWords is how much search volume there is on those things. So it doesn't matter whether you're paying for clicks or you're ranking organically, there's still the same amount of searches. So yeah, you can use that. I'll think of it and I'll find you afterwards. There's another one that I know a few people use. We don't tend to use it. And the other area, as I say, that predictive search. Another way you can do it, if you're trying to, you should know this because you're in the industry already, but if you do a blog search within Google, so you can specifically search blogs and what people are blogging about, and there's a whole, there's a huge number of fashion bloggers and lifestyle bloggers, and I'm sure there are wedding bloggers out there as well. But if you start crawling those sites for keyword ideas, you'll get some of the more semantic language that you might not be aware of. You probably should be, but that's another way of kind of finding some of those things. But I find the predictive search is quite neat for some of the longer tail stuff, because sometimes the keyword planner won't tell you any of those things. Because with AdWords, what they want you to do is bid on the stuff that's got lots of traffic. Sorry, go on. Last one, sorry.
Our website, so there's a bespoke jewellery and I do my own collections as well.
Okay.
We also sell on not on the high street and Jewel Street.
Yep.
And then on some of the descriptions from our website and not the high street and Jewel Street,
Yep.
might be the same descriptions.
They're the same, yeah.
Would that penalise?
Potentially. I mean, there's a technical way. Just the thing I mentioned earlier, that's quite a technical thing. You can do what they call a canonical link, and effectively what that is an instruction to Google that this page, we know it's duplicate content, this is the original one. So it will effectively just pretty much ignore that. So even though it exists as a page and everyone can view it, it's publicly available, you're telling Google, I know this is duplicate content, this is the originator. So, but I don't know how you would do that not on the high street. I'm not familiar with the site,
So
unfortunately.
even if, I mean, the whole page wouldn't be exactly the same, but it's like just the description of the...
Yeah, I mean, Google's pretty smart about that. So, you know, obviously there are third-party shopping comparison engines, things like that, that would take the same description and the title. So you're probably fairly okay. Without looking into it in depth, I don't know. Potentially, but Google's clever enough to know that you've changed 2 or 3 words, or even that sentence, and you've changed them round. You know, it's a very clever algorithm that they've got. So, yeah, I doubt it's doing you much harm, but certainly worth looking into. But I'd have to look into it more specifically to give you a real answer. And that's me done, folks. Thanks so much for listening.